A massive bull elephant, known for his solitary wisdom, did the unthinkable. He approached a ranger not with a charge, but with a desperate, pleading gesture. The terrifying reason he needed human help to save his mate would reveal a hidden danger that stalked them both from the shadows. The sun bled its final crimson light over the canopy of Bandhavgarh National Park, painting the teak and sal trees in long, grasping shadows. For Senior Ranger Ben Carter, the fading day brought not peace, but a heightened edge of vigilance. The air, thick with the humid scent of earth and blooming night flowers, carried a recent, more sinister smell, the faint, cold ash of unauthorized campfires, poachers. They'd been getting bolder, pushing deeper into protected territory. And every evening patrol now felt like a silent declaration of war against an unseen enemy. Ben completed his final perimeter check, the familiar weight of his rifle a comfort against his shoulder, and turned back towards his idling jeep, ready to file another uneventful report. He never heard it approach. One moment the jungle clearing was empty, save for the chorus of evening insects. The next he was not alone. A presence emerged from the wall of green with a silence that defied its immense size. It was Bhima, a bull elephant of legendary stature among the rangers, a patriarch known for his astonishing intelligence and the deep, wise scars that mapped a lifetime on his wrinkled hide. He stood barely 20 yards away, his dark, intelligent eyes fixed on Ben. His great ears flared not in threat, but in what looked like acute distress. This was all wrong. A bull of his age and status should have been with his herd, or at the very least should have trumpeted a warning, charged or retreated. He did none of these things. Instead, Bhima did the impossible. He took one slow, deliberate step forward, then another, his movements hesitant, almost respectful. He raised his trunk, not in a mock charge, but in a gentle, swaying gesture, curling the tip towards himself before pointing it back into the deepening darkness of the jungle behind him. A low, rumbling sound vibrated in his chest, a frequency Ben felt more than heard. It wasn't the earth-shaking roar of a challenge. It was a deep, guttural plea, a sound so layered with unmistakable urgency that it froze the ranger in his tracks. His training screamed at him to retreat to the vehicle, to create distance. But every instinct honed over 15 years in the field told him something unprecedented, something profound, was breaking all the rules right before his eyes. The elephant wasn't threatening him. He was begging him. Ben's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the elephant's deep, rumbling infrasound. Protocol was clear, etched into his mind from years of training. Maintain distance. Do not engage a solitary bull, especially at dusk. Yet his feet felt rooted to the spot. Bhima, seeing Ben's hesitation, repeated the gesture. He took 2 steps backward toward the jungle edge, then stopped, his trunk again making that deliberate curling motion toward Ben and then back into the shadows. When Ben instinctively took a half-step toward his jeep, the elephant let out a sharp, truncated trumpet, not aggressive, but frustrated, desperate. He moved to intercept Ben's path, not with charging speed, but with a deliberate block, his massive body a gentle, living barrier. Ben's mind raced, flipping through a mental file of every encounter he'd ever had with this specific elephant. He remembered Bhima as a young bull, curiously watching ranger patrols from a safe distance. He remembered him years later, deftly leading his herd away from a village border after a crop raid, demonstrating a level of control and understanding that was rare. This was an animal who understood boundaries, who recognized the rangers not as threats, but as part of the landscape's Ji-Shu. That history, that unspoken respect built over decades, warred with the cold text of protocol. The radio in his hand felt heavy. How would he even explain this? "Base, a 5-ton bull elephant is trying to give me directions." It was insane. But the evidence was standing before him, its intelligent eyes filled with a distress so palpable it felt human. The light was fading fast, and with it any chance of understanding what was happening. making a decision that would redefine his career and challenge everything science knew about animal cognition. Ben Carter slowly raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Okay, big fella," he whispered, his voice steadier than he felt. "Okay, I'm listening." He took a cautious step forward. Bhima immediately ceased his anxious swaying. He turned and began to walk into the jungle, pausing every few paces to look back, ensuring the ranger was following. The path Bhima chose was not an elephant trail, but a treacherous route through dense undergrowth, forcing the massive animal to break branches and push through thickets with his forehead. Ben followed, the thorns of wait-a-bit vines snagging on his uniform, the uneven ground treacherous in the dying light. He kept his rifle ready and his radio in hand, his senses screaming at the vulnerability of his position. He was being led deep into the jungle by a powerful wild animal, away from his vehicle, away from help. Bhima's urgency was relentless. He frequently stopped, his immense head turning back, his eyes finding bends in the gloom, a silent command to hurry. The elephant's low rumbles continued, a constant worried soundtrack to their bizarre procession. After nearly half a mile, the vegetation began to change, opening into a rocky area dotted with limestone formations. The air grew cooler, and a new smell hit Ben's nostrils, the dank, stagnant odor of mud and decay. Bhima's pacing changed. His walk became a nervous, hesitant shuffle. He stopped at the edge of a large, dark opening in the ground, a sinkhole created by eroded limestone. His trunk snaked out over the edge, pointing downward, and he let out a soft, whimpering sound that tore at Ben's heart. Ben approached cautiously, his flashlight beam cutting through the near-total darkness. The beam swept across the hole, 10 feet across and at least 15 feet deep. And there at the bottom, mired in thick black mud, was Lakshmi. Ben recognized her immediately, Bhima's longtime matriarch and mate. Her once proud frame was caked in filth, her breathing labored and shallow. One of her rear legs was bent at an unnatural angle, clearly broken from the fall. Her eyes were half closed, dulled by exhaustion, pain, and dehydration. She had been here for days. Ben's breath caught in his throat. The scene was one of utter despair. He fumbled for his radio, his voice tight. "Base, this is Carter. I have a severe code animal in distress. Sector Delta 4, adult female elephant, trapped in a sinkhole, significant injury. Requesting heavy machinery vet team, winch, everything you've got. Immediate assistance required." The radio crackled back with questions, demands for clarification on how he'd found her. Ben glanced at Bhima, who was now reaching his trunk down toward his trapped mate, making soft, comforting rumbles. Just get them here now," Ben said, avoiding the impossible truth. "The situation is critical." As he waited for a response, Ben's training took over. He circled the sinkhole, assessing the stability of the edges, looking for any way to get down to Lakshmi. His flashlight beam probed the darkness, and that's when he saw it. Just beyond the rim of the pit, half hidden by a fern, was a discarded plastic water bottle and the crumpled cellophane from a packet of biscuits. Human signs, recent, his blood ran cold. This wasn't just a tragic accident. Poachers had been here. They'd likely dug around the natural sinkhole, camouflaging it to trap game. Lakshmi had been their unintended catch, a giant too valuable to waste, but too difficult to extract quickly. They would have been waiting for her to die of her injuries or thirst, to then harvest her tusks, a fortune in ivory. But Bhima had stayed, guarding her, scaring them off. This explained his desperate state. But as Ben's light swept a wider arc, the true, terrifying reason for Bhima's begging crystallized. The beam caught it for just a second, a pair of luminous green eyes, low to the ground, reflecting back at him from the tree line 30 yards away. Then they vanished. A moment later, a deep, coughing grunt rolled out of the darkness, a sound that every fiber of Ben's being recognized. A tiger, a Bengal tiger, attracted by the scent of a trapped, dying animal. It was lurking, waiting for night to fall completely, for the great bull elephant to finally exhaust himself or leave his post. Lakshmi wasn't just trapped and injured. She was being stalked. The poachers were one threat, but they were cowardly and could be scared away. A hungry tiger, especially a large male, was an apex predator of unimaginable power and patience. It would not be deterred easily. Bhima hadn't just been asking Ben to save his mate from the pit. He'd been begging for help against a killer that even he, the mighty patriarch, could not fight off forever. The clock was no longer just ticking on dehydration. It was ticking on a death sentence waiting in the shadows. The radio crackled to life with the voice of Park Director Sharma. Ben, the team is mobilizing, but ETA is 90 minutes minimum. It's getting dark. Maintain visual contact, but do not, I repeat, do not attempt any intervention. That's a direct order. A stressed bull and a trapped cow are an incredibly dangerous combination. And we have unconfirmed reports of a large male tiger in that sector. Ben's gaze darted from the director's voice on the radio to the pitiful sight of Lakshmi, her breath now coming in ragged gasps, and then to Bhima, who was staring at him, those intelligent eyes seeming to comprehend the crackling communication. He saw the tiger's eyes flash again, closer this time. 90 minutes was a lifetime. Lakshmi wouldn't last that long, and the tiger was growing bolder. "Sir, we don't have 90 minutes, Ben said, his voice strained. "The tiger is here now. It's circling. Then retreat to a safe distance, Ranger." "That's an order. We cannot lose you both." Ben looked at Bhima. The elephant had understood the new threat. He turned to face the direction of the tiger, his ears flared, his body tense. He was standing his ground, but he was exhausted and out of his element in the dense rocks. He was a protector, but he needed protection himself. Ben made his choice. "Sir, I'm sorry." "I can't do that." He switched off the radio, silencing the inevitable outburst. His career was over. He knew that, but he couldn't leave them. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and moved to his jeep, parked 100 yards back. He grabbed his heavy-duty winch cable, a tow strap, and his emergency medical kit. Returning to the pit, he spoke in a low, calm voice, addressing both elephants. "I'm going to try something. I need you to trust me." Bhima watched him, his rumbling ceasing as if listening. Ben anchored the winch cable to a sturdy tree and began carefully lowering the hook and strap down into the pit, aiming to loop it around Lakshmi's chest behind her front legs. It was a desperate, dangerous gamble. The world narrowed to the circle of his flashlight beam. Lakshmi was too weak to protest much as Ben, leaning perilously over the edge, managed to loop the strap around her. She let out a weak groan, a sound of pure exhaustion. Above, Bhima watched every move, his trunk occasionally touching Ben's back, not aggressively but as if checking on him, urging him on. The tension was a physical thing, a wire stretched to breaking point. And then the tiger charged. It was a blur of orange and black, a silent explosion of muscle launched from a rock outcropping. It wasn't aiming for the elephants. It was aiming for Ben, the vulnerable human on the ground, distracted. Ben froze, fumbling for his rifle. But he was too slow. Bhima was not. With a trumpet that shattered the night, the bull elephant moved with shocking speed. He didn't charge fully. He pivoted, placing his immense body between the leaping tiger and the ranger. He swung his head, and the tiger, mid-pounce, collided with the living wall of elephant hide and bone. It was like hitting a truck. The big cat was thrown sideways with a yowl of surprise and pain, landing in a heap before scrambling back into the darkness, snarling. Ben stood, heart pounding, staring at Bhima's massive flank. The elephant had just saved his life. He had recognized the threat and intervened with precise, calculated force. The message was undeniable. They were in this together now. A temporary, unbelievable alliance between human and elephant against a common enemy. "Thank you," Ben breathed, his voice shaking. He turned back to the winch, his hands now steady with a new resolve. He started the jeep's engine remotely. The winch motor whirred to life, the cable tightening. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, it began to take Lakshmi's immense weight, pulling her from the sucking grip of the mud. The sound of the winch and Lakshmi's pained struggles finally scared the tiger off for good. The extraction was brutal to watch. Lakshmi cried out as her broken leg was dragged over the rocky edge of the pit, but the alternative was certain death. Bhima stood guard the entire time, a silent, monumental sentinel, his attention constantly scanning the darkness for the predator's return. When Lakshmi finally lay on solid ground, free from the pit but broken and exhausted, Ben approached with extreme caution, his medical kit in hand. Bhima watched him but made no move to stop him. Ben administered a powerful antibiotic injection and painkillers from his limited supply, knowing it was a drop in the ocean for an animal her size, but hoping it would stabilize her until the vet arrived. He splinted her leg with branches and torn strips from his own shirt, a crude but necessary measure. As he worked, he spoke softly to both elephants, a continuous stream of reassurance. Just as he finished, the distant roar of engines and the sweep of headlights through the trees announced the arrival of the rescue team. They arrived with a flatbed truck, a crane, and Dr. Anika Patel, the head vet, who jumped out, her face a mask of professional concern and sheer disbelief at the scene before her. The team worked quickly to sedate Lakshmi properly and prepare her for the crane lift onto the truck. Throughout the organized chaos, Bhima allowed them to work, keeping a distance but watching every move. As the sedated Lakshmi was finally secured on the truck, Bhima took a few steps forward. The rangers tensed, raising their deterrents, but Ben held up a hand. "Wait." Bhima walked slowly up to Ben. He stopped mere feet away. The massive elephant looked at his sleeping mate on the truck, then turned his gaze to the ranger. He reached out his trunk. Ben stood perfectly still. The trunk, capable of felling trees, gently, ever so gently touched Ben's chest. It moved over his heart, a soft, investigating touch that lasted only a few seconds. Then Bhima curled his trunk back, gave a soft, deep rumble, and took several steps back, giving them space to leave. It was a gesture of profound thanks, a recognition of help given, a moment of pure, unadulterated cross-species communication. In the weeks that followed, Lakshmi recovered in the park's sanctuary. Her leg was set by the best veterinary surgeons in India, and her strength returned slowly. Bhima's story, backed by Ben's testimony and the vet team's awe, spread like wildfire. Director Sharma, once furious, became Ben's biggest defender, citing extraordinary circumstances requiring exceptional courage. The event wasn't just a rescue, it was a case study. Dr. Patel and animal behaviorists documented every detail, their reports challenging long-held notions of elephant cognition, empathy, and their ability to intentionally seek specific help from humans. Ben visited Bhima every day at the perimeter of the sanctuary, where the bull had taken up a quiet vigil, waiting for his mate's return. They would share moments of silence, a mutual respect forged in the darkness of that terrifying night. 3 months later, the day came to return a fully healed Lakshmi to her territory. The release was done with careful planning, returning her to the exact spot where she was found. As the truck doors opened, she emerged, sniffing the air, and let out a joyful trumpet. From the tree line, Bhima answered, emerging with his entire herd behind him. The reunion was a magnificent spectacle of rumbling, trunk-touching, and social bonding that brought tears to the eyes of the hardened rangers watching. Before leading his family back into the jungle, Bhima paused. He turned his head, his wise eyes finding Ben's in the crowd. He raised his trunk high into the air in a classic elephant salute, a gesture of recognition and dominance, but in this context, it felt like a final, dignified farewell. Then he turned and disappeared into the green, his family safe around him. Ben Carter stood there long after they had gone. The terrifying reason the elephant had begged him wasn't just the pit or the poachers or the tiger. It was the terrifyingly beautiful revelation that these majestic animals live in a world of deep thought and deeper feeling, that they understand us, and sometimes they know exactly who to ask for help.